And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us now is our friend Frank Figliuzzi, FBI Assistant Director, retired, 25 years special agent. He has best-selling books, including The FBI Way and his Substack. Very, very popular. The Frank Figliuzzi, which if you don't subscribe to, check it out. It's great stuff. He had a really good article today about losing the rights in the amendments, thanks to what's going on. So, Frank, thanks for joining. How are you?
I'm energized, my friend, energized and motivated by what's going on right now in our country.
And I imagine you're energized because of the reaction by people to standing up to a wannabe tyrant. Is that
I'm driven by the fact that we're on a cusp of headed down a slippery slope to a place nobody wants to go. Nobody. And I'm also energized by the fact that even Trumpsters are now saying, "Hey, timeout. We've got an issue." As recently as this morning, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, has said, "I think ICE needs to recalibrate their mission." So that
it's
energizes.
interesting before we get to the legal part of it, and I know you don't comment on politics, but this is more societal. I saw the same thing with some Republicans, even Lindsey Graham, who's one of the most hawkish people, going, I'm glad Tom Homan's going to Minnesota, who's awful, Tom Homan. But the point is, he said, but what he put is he knows how to de-escalate. That's the words they're using. And I guess there's a point where all this bravado got to a point where a second American was killed, and they see where this could lead to. This could lead to armed groups on either side fighting each other. It can lead to pockets of violence or to an actual, I'm not going to say civil war. There's not the funding for that, but a lot of violence. I should put it that way. So I think it's interesting that they're feeling the same temperature, that what's happening right now is that fundamentally wrong. They go, let's stop it. This is not a game anymore. We got to de-escalate this.
So I'm of course like you. I'm a big cynic when people on the MAGA side kind of change their mind on something or seem to be. So yes, they're doing it, but I with regard to their reason why, it's either money or money or money. And I think what's happening is they're getting phone calls from their constituents, who are Second Amendment zealots, and they're saying, "Hey, hold on a second," or like the NRA might be secretly calling these folks saying, "We give you a lot of money, my friend, and you are backing the fact that the government's telling us you can't be armed on the street, that only criminals carry guns? What's going on?" And then money, money. Look at the big corporations that are headquartered in Minnesota coming out and going, "Hey, time out, time out." So when 3M and Target and these other companies are saying we got a problem here on the business side, again, those are companies that give money to politicians. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
It's interesting that that's the calculation. I also think that they know it's playing really badly. They know the lies are not working. The lies didn't work for Renee Good, and I wrote about it yesterday. Polling showed only about 24% of Americans thought Renee Good was a terrorist. Now, that's an outrageous claim, but that's what they were saying on the other side. And only less than 30% thought the shooting was justified, despite the full team effort of Trump, Fox News, Newsmax, and all that. They couldn't sway people away from what they saw and their gut feeling that this is wrong to kill an American, a mother in the street. Now with this,
Yeah.
with the killing of Alex Pretti, it's even more jarring. I mean, the guy was
Right,
on
right.
the and they shot him to death right there.
Because you had, if you wanted to condemn Renee Good, you had wiggle room with the vehicle as a weapon theory, right? I wasn't buying that too much, but okay, you had something to grasp onto. You do not have that here with Mr. Pretti. You do not have it.
So, let's now go back to your experience. You were in the FBI. I remember last time we talked, you said for 2 years you were in charge of reviewing shootings by FBI agents to see legally justified or not. So let's break this down a little bit. First of all, even before the shooting, why is it that 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 CBP ICE agents cannot restrain a man who's on the ground? I don't know. I see NYPD, they would have done that in a minute. They wouldn't have hit him with a pepper spray can. They would have used pepper spray. They would have had a taser,
Yeah.
a nightstick, whatever it is. They could not even restrain him, which was, to me, said something, but maybe I'm wrong. You tell me in the real world.
So here I'm going to sound more cynical than usual here. You're right. They seem to have trouble restraining him, but I'm not going to go toward training because that's basic Academy 101. Although the Academy now is 47 days in honor of Trump being the 47th president. But I have another theory on this, which
Okay.
is that, and I'm gonna say to my law enforcement friends and colleagues, yes, there are moments in your career on the street where you've got somebody who is high as a kite on something, or incredibly strong, or all of the above. And yes, amazingly, it can take 5, 6, or more agents to actually get this guy under control. So yes, I acknowledge that.
Understand.
That is not what we have here. And so I'm led to conclude that that restraint was and handcuffs were not the objective here. The objective here, based on the totality of all the video that we see before, during, and after, was not handcuffing and arresting, but beating the crap out of somebody. And the blows that I see struck by the one agent who's got, now we believe it was a tear gas canister in his hand. By the way, that's not a restraint method. Don't- no, not when you have 6 agents. If it's you fighting for your life on the street, all bets are off. But not when you have 6 agents. No, you're not striking blows with an object. Um, Next, we see no of the common restraint holds, the arm bar, you take the legs, I take the arms. We see none of that happening whatsoever. In fact, let's not forget, this individual is pepper sprayed already.
Right.
One of the first things they do as he's complying and backing up with his camera to the sidewalk, complying, we see them pepper spray him while he's still up. So you got a guy who now has to breathe because people are saying, "Oh, Frank, do you see him on the sidewalk on all fours? He's not proning out." Yeah, he's trying to get an airway. He's trying to breathe, and he's been pepper sprayed. So I don't see this as failed restraint. I see this as they never intended to restrain or handcuff. The handcuffs never came out, by the way. But and also, I could keep going. Your duty once someone is shot 10 times at least
Right. Well, let's
is
let's
to
break it
is
down. We'll get to the gun part
okay.
next. I want to keep it more granular for me and for everyone based on your experience as FBI agent. So when you're saying they do not want to restrain him, what my mind is saying is they just like beating people up. That sends a message or makes them feel good, whatever it might be. But what is your take on what's going on?
Yeah, I've said this before, many weeks ago. This is intentional aggression.
Mhm.
The evidence before me, and believe me, I don't take these statements lightly. 25 years in federal law enforcement, I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to cops on the street. These are not cops on the street. And the evidence I keep seeing, because of the totality of their behavior, is that there's no other way for me to conclude anything else but intentional aggression.
Hmm.
What do I mean by that? Crashing windows in cars, tapping on cars to of a Caucasian blue-eyed woman to see if she's illegal. I don't unlawfully here, slamming people to the ground, stopping. Think about this. The language that gets me, and I'm tired of hearing, is we were on a targeted operation. A targeted operation. Oh, good for you. And they spend the first 5 minutes of a press conference showing this guy they were after. Dean, there's no relevance to this. There's no this nurse, this ICU nurse at a veterans hospital, was in no way, particularly once he moved to the sidewalk, obstructing your so-called targeted operation. We heard the same thing with Renee Good. Well, we were on a targeted operation. There's a guy in charge there who did the press conference with Greg Bavino. He's a nice guy too, a senior guy. He keeps saying, because we were on a targeted operation, we have the right to stop along the way and accost people. That no, I mean that's like saying when I was out with an FBI SWAT team at 5:30 in the morning and we're going to go hit a drug house, that we can stop and harass people along the way for grins. That's what are you talking about? Well, that guy could be a drug guy on the see him right there. Well, no, but we're half a mile away from our target. What are you talking about? This is absolute nonsense.
So does this go to the culture of what is happening within ICE and CBP and DHS? That you go out there, act with impunity. You're told by JD Vance you have absolute immunity, something we've talked about in the past. If you believe that and internalize it, you think you can do anything because you
Uh,
have Donald Trump and the Trump regime on your side no matter what you do to whoever you do it to.
Yeah, that message has been sent loud and clear.
Yeah.
We're now aware from a whistleblower, as published by the Associated Press, the Washington Post, and other places. Congress has this. There has been a secret memo that came out in May. It was signed by the acting director of ICE, and it tells agents you are authorized to forcibly enter homes based on a government form called an I-025, indicating someone's deportable. All of that together, absolute immunity, which is a myth. President saying we will always have the back of ICE and DHS agents, et cetera, et cetera. This is intentional, it's deliberate, and it goes way beyond the mission of rounding up the so-called worst of the worst. I don't know anybody who thinks that we shouldn't be rounding up violent criminals, okay?
Right.
That's not what's happening here. The violent criminals are the agents who are beating the crap out of and shooting and killing citizens for exercising their First and Second and now Fourth Amendment rights to the Constitution.
So now let's go back to the actual scene. So you've got Alex Pretti on the ground, 5 or 6, maybe even 7. It's hard to say. ICE, CBP are beating him up. And then what we know, it's confirmed now. Washington Post, New York Times, frame by frame. One of the officers sees the gun in the waistband, the back band, takes the gun out. We see that person come out because at first that guy didn't make any sense to me. I watched that video. I'm like, what is that guy running from before the shot? He turns around and takes the gun away, and then the first shot happens. So take us through now what you're seeing there and what this means to you.
Yeah, so look, if there's anything I can point to in this scenario that looks like somebody paid attention to training, it would be a couple of things. First, you hear gun, gun, gun. That's absolutely appropriate. You're telling everybody on your team, I see a weapon. By the way, from the video, it appears, they saw the weapon, not because it was brandished, but rather because it appears to have been holstered on his waistband.
Right.
So, but yes, I would yell gun, gun, gun. And then you see an agent withdraw the gun from Mr. Pretti's hip and walk away with it. Very safe, right? Because now you've got a loose gun in your hand. You could do a couple things. You could tuck it into your waistband. That's dangerous if you're wrestling. You could kick it away, but that goes into a crowd. So he walks away with it. What he should have said, and I don't hear it, is gun clear, gun clear. So that now, while there could be another weapon, and by the way, don't be surprised if you hear ICE come out and go, aha, there was an ankle holster.
I
He
think
had
you would
another.
have said that before, but yes, I know. 2 days later, now it'd be like, you're kidding us. Right. But so
He
no,
had a pocket
please
knife.
continue. So
He had a
he should have yelled gun clear. We don't hear that in any
no,
videos.
no. So that's neutralized. Okay. And then we hear what sounds to me like 10 rounds being fired, and what looks to me, and I'm careful, I don't know this for a fact, but it looks like 2 agents firing. I don't know that. Although I heard an ICE officials use plural here for agents on that, so that's interesting. I see them backing up. I see, which again, if you have the time to back up and shoot a prone man face down on the sidewalk, I question whether you're in imminent fear of death or serious bodily harm.
Right.
Usually when you see these wrestling matches and a gunshot, the officer is fighting for his life and manages to shoot while he's engaged with the guy on the ground. This is very different. I have enough time to back up and get some distance and keep firing. And again, that's not your training. The training I would look at in the shooting review I would conduct would be, did the officer double tap as he's trained to do? And we're told this is a trained firearms instructor, a veteran. So he teaches double tap. What's that mean? Your first shot is twice. You hit twice, boom, boom, and you reassess and you keep going. If the guy is still moving, reaching for a gun, looks like he's reaching, boom, boom, again, gun comes down to ready gun, and you assess the threat. All I hear is boom, 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 boom. So what I'm getting tired of, Dean, in both the Renee Good incident and in the Pretti incident, what do we hear? This is a trained veteran firearms instructor. In both cases, instructors Well, again, I'm back to my theory. If he's that well trained, now twice we've had this, that he knows how to do this correctly, and he's chosen not to. You heard Greg Bovino at a press conference say choices. I'm going to talk about choices. These trained firearms instructors, plural, chose to do the wrong thing.
Frank, from my point of view, watching, because I watch it like all of us bunches of times and slowed it down. When the officers back up and they're firing enemies laying on the ground, it looked like something you would see in a war zone, not law enforcement. Like they're fighting in Fallujah and they come across an enemy combatant, and the guy's shooting at them and they just keep shooting to make sure the person's dead. We don't do that to U.S. citizens, but that's what it felt like to me. And I'm glad you're explaining the actual way you're trained, because it didn't. I'm like, this can't be normal. This is like not even in a movie. You don't see this kind of stuff. So getting into the real heart of it, when you review this, and as someone who's the experience of reviewing shootings before, is this a justified shooting? Justified killing?
Right. I waited and waited. People were hitting me up on social media when this happened. Why aren't you on yet? Why aren't you going live on Substack yet, Frank? Everybody's going live. I waited. I watched. I listened. Saw the various videos that were being released, and then I came on before I could make any conclusion.
Right.
And right now, based on what I know, I'm saying this was not a justified shooting within the deadly force policy of the Department of Homeland Security.
And I appreciate you waiting. And I waited to write an article for Substack till about 7 o'clock Saturday night, because I was posting on social media like everyone else. But when you sit down and want to write something, again, both of us being lawyers, you being an FBI, former FBI agent, uh, you want to get it right. And our credibility is everything, because the minute you lose your credibility, then you're just a pundit who's just saying garbage things to make people happy, as opposed to informing them about what the law is, or what the facts are as you see them. When did you ever see an image anywhere of Alex holding the gun? And I'm just saying that to fact check their lie that he was brandishing a weapon, repeated by Kristi Noem.
Negative, no, no. And my opinion would change, by the way. If I saw an image of the victim, and I am calling him a victim, with his hand anywhere near his weapon, I would change my opinion here, perhaps. But the image we see, and the famous, the still photo that will become infamous, Dean, is essentially an agent firing what we believe is the first round into the back of Mr. Pretti.
And Greg Bovino, the Customs Border Patrol officer, said on CNN, none of the officers involved in the shooting, especially the ones who killed Alex, were put on administrative leave. They were just reassigned somewhere else. What's your reaction to that?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're back to my theory that this is all intentional, and absolutely not. I don't know any department that would put an agent back on the street right away after even the best shooting you've ever seen, the most legit shooting. This is sending a message to the people and to the agents that everything is fine. We have no concerns about shootings. You'll go right back on the street. And by the way, that's extremely dangerous. When you've been in a shooting like this, taking a man's life, a woman's life, and you are back on the street, you are ignoring all of the known trauma signals, all of the necessary counseling. In the FBI, you're sitting out, man. You're sitting out for at least a week. And your gun is taken. It's analyzed as evidence, as part of the review. How many rounds did you fire? How many was it loaded with? All of that is occurring. And I don't see any of that occurring here. And in fact, we now know that the state authority that wanted to investigate this shooting scene has been denied that, even with a warrant to access the scene in their own city.
And again, look, that happened to Renee Good as well, where Attorney General Ellison and local prosecutors wanted to investigate. They would not allow it. Here again, they got a court order saying you can't destroy the evidence, but they're not allowed access to it. And it's a cover up in real time. But again, is that fueling the idea, Frank, that Trump regime is telling their FBI, their DHS agents, ICE and CBP, go kill someone we've got your back to the point where we will cover up and prevent an investigation into it. Not that we're not at the point of you'll be charged and you can assert an immunity. They're saying we've got your back to the point where we will cover up an investigation so they can't even charge you.
So I'm going to be careful here in saying I am just short. I am short of saying and concluding that they've been instructed to shoot and kill people without justification. What I feel far more confident saying is that all of this is foreseeable.
Mhm.
All, all of this is foreseeable when you tell agents you have absolute immunity. We're going to intentionally be aggressive. We're going to stop and accost people on the way to a so-called targeted operation. We're not going to give you administrative timeout if you shoot. You go right back on the street. We're not going to really investigate. For Renee Good, you'll recall they told the FBI, "You've got this," and then they pulled it out. Now they're not even pretending. No, we've got this. The DHS has this. Well, major conflict of interest. So it's foreseeable, Dean. It's foreseeable. I'll draw the analogy to Jack Smith in his testimony last week, right? What did he say with regard to the violence on Capitol Hill? It was foreseeable. Without Trump, this does not happen.
Yeah. If Trump simply accepted the fact he lost the 2020 election, none of that happens. Like, go from that day one. If 3 days after the election, Trump goes, I lost everyone. It sucks. We'll get him next time. There's no one's coming there on January 6th. There's no lies about no
Right.
radicalization of people to leave the election result. But I don't want to get off that. But Frank, you were on my radio show Friday. We didn't do a Substack Live, but we talked about this very point. It's a point I keep making over and over. Is that if you do not punish people, then you don't deter people from doing the exact same conduct and others mimicking that conduct. Our entire criminal justice system is predicated on this sense of punish and deter, not punish to be cruel, punish for the wrongdoing to deter them, that person, and everyone else from doing the same. If you do not punish the killer of Renee Good and the killer of Alex Pretti, and you're going to cover them up and you're telling them absolute immunity, you're going to see more murders of Americans, 100%. As sure as you're watching, 100% you will see Trump knows it, JD Vance knows it, Kristi Noem knows this, and they want to continue down this path. It is beyond irresponsible. They are putting a target on Americans by having these guys are like a militia. I mean, Frank, this is insane. The way they're tormenting and harassing people in Minnesota, they are under occupation by our foreign force, but it's our federal agents that our tax dollars are funding. Like, we are paying for this. It's just an insane scenario we're living through right now.
So we need, for want of a better word, we need an intervention. And what would that look like?
Allied forces landing on the beach?
Well,
Save us?
right. Or
Kidnap Donald Trump?
Send Trump down on the couch with all of his friends and loved ones.
Can Venezuela steal Trump? We can swap it. We got Maduro, you get Trump. I mean,
what I think this looks like is forced accountability. What do I mean by that? Even though state and county and local actions may ultimately fail in federal court based on the supremacy clause of the Constitution, they need to happen anyway. What do I mean?
Yep.
For example, absolutely the killing of Renee Good and now Alex Pretti need to become state investigations. They have enough with a video, particularly where we're talking about Alex Pretti. They have enough now with video and witnesses they can access to charge the agents involved. Now, I'm well aware that we allegedly don't even know the name of the agents yet. I've seen some circulating. I'm not going to repeat the names. I don't know them, but that's not the point. You can do it. It's ugly. It's not optimal. But you can say unnamed federal agents versus the state of Minnesota, right? Vice versa. You can also sue civilly unnamed federal agents. That civil suit is called the Bivens actions. It's possible to sue a federal agent. It is very hard. You've got to show they were outside the scope of their employment. And where does that decision come from? Generally from the DOJ. But you can do it, you can try, and it sends a signal to the agents. Don't think you're off scot-free. Both Renee Good and Alex Pretti, that should happen. Civil and criminal actions by the state. And very difficult to do. Next, we have Pam Bondi telling Minnesota, Maine, and now other Democratic states, I'll pull ICE out as if she's in charge of ICE. So that tells you this is coordinated, right?
Yeah, of course it is. It's the
Right.
same effort.
She has power over DHS. Fascinating. Coordinated. I will pull out ICE that doesn't belong to me if you give us your voter records. My friend, that is the definition of public corruption. That is bribery and extortion. And the state of Minnesota has the statute. I've posted it on my social media and Substack. Go for it. Will they win? Probably not. Supremacy clause.
Right.
Charge her with bribery and extortion. It has to happen.
I love it. I mean, like I keep saying, it's not enough to call for the impeachment of Kristi Noem. It's got to be impeach and prosecute. You want to you want to send a message to every administration in the future. You can't do this and walk away. Last thing, Frank, and I appreciate your time. We're going along here, but what is your reaction to this? The playbook of the Trump regime to kill you and then smear you. Kill you and smear you. And in both cases, the playbook is to call a fellow American citizen and a domestic terrorist. Stephen Miller put that in writing. Domestic terrorist. Kristi Noem, Greg Bovino said he was there to assassinate law enforcement officers. What concerns do you have when you hear this from our administration towards people who are protesting the actions of the administration?
Well, first, I'm not a psychologist, but I think their term for this is projection. So that when you are the domestic terrorist, you will call other people a domestic terrorist without any evidence at all, particularly where people are exercising their First Amendment rights. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have someone exercising their constitutional rights, speech, assembly, peaceful protest, and at the same time say, and you're a domestic terrorist. No, that's something's wrong with that picture. You're either one or the other. You can't violate the law and exercise your rights at the same time. So that's wrong. I think it is projection. And I think, by the way, I think by and large, the American public's even the far right's like, nah, I'm not seeing that. The guy was an ICU nurse at the VA. I'm not seeing the domestic terrorism here. So I think this will ultimately fail. I will tell you, this Bovino, oh my God, Bovino's comment that Pretti was there, he showed up to massacre agents, is that is a defamation suit waiting to happen. And if Pretti's estate can sue Bovino, have at it.
I agree. Sue them, prosecute them, everything to hold them accountable. And, in my point to people earlier in my show and also my article is that the playbook of demonizing protesters as terrorists is exactly what the Iranian regime has literally called them. Not me saying, they literally, Putin calling Alexei Navalny a terrorist, charging with terrorism. It's what you do. It's what authoritarian regimes do. It's what Joseph Stalin did. If you go back in time, Hitler didn't even have to do that. They just rounded people up. But these other people had some charade of like, we're doing things above board. It's what right-wing fascist or authoritarian regimes do. But Frank, so before we wrap up, your Substack is the Frank Figliuzzi, right? On Substack.com?
It is the Frank Figliuzzi. And going live increasingly. I'm also on Instagram, Blue Sky, and of course, have my website at frankfigliuzzi.com.
If you were on TikTok, we'll never see you because the right-wing owners now officially have TikTok. So that's the end of it, folks. TikTok is now Fox News Online. Fox News for kids. It's not going to work. So thank you. Thanks so much, Frank, for being on. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We love all the comments here. I wish that was more time to read them, but thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Keep up the good work, Dean. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.